Hey guys, I am Caleb Giddings,
And I'm Keith Finch, and I
and
have
we're
an HK
watching.
stock.
And you have an HK stock. I have 38 ammo. I just grabbed the nearest thing. I
I
was like, I have nothing. But
don't
what I
have a
do
thing.
have,
I didn't know we were doing
I didn't
that.
know we were doing show tell, but what I do have is a sponsor banner, which you guys can look at now.
Hey,
Thank you to our sponsors. So, Keith, today we are talking about one of my favorite things, and it's how stupid we used to be. Because
yes.
on this journey through firearms enthusiasm, being a firearms enthusiast, all of us, it's funny because I was talking to a mutual friend of ours about this the other day. I found something I'd written in 2013 and it made me want to throw myself out a window. I'm like,
Yes.
this is so bad.
Yes.
This is so fucking dumb. Um, and it was just something that you believed because it was what you got taught when you came in, or it was what you learned about. And it just,
It's what you understood at the time. And guys, the difference, and we're going to make fun of stuff in this episode, mostly about ourselves, but
mhm.
it's going to attack things that are now termed as FUD lore, where it's a belief that people hang on to. They hang on to it with almost a religious fervor, even though there is very easy corroborating information now after the fact that says, well, actually, guys, now that we know better, we should now speak in these terms, or we should forward this information now. So yeah. But yeah,
So
dumb things we used to believe,
my
us
big one,
specifically.
my big one, and it's one that I still struggle with, was stopping power.
Mhm.
And it was specifically handgun stopping power. I believed in hydrostatic shock and energy dump, and but the specific expression of my stopping power stupidity, 3 words: glazer safety slugs. That that was like the ultimate expression of how dumb I was because I believed that the best defensive round that I could possibly carry was a 357 Magnum Glazer safety slug. Then that was the absolute hand of the Lord God Almighty and would slay
Smiting
all.
the wicked.
And to be fair, if you shoot something like if you shoot a like a ham hock with a Glazer safety slug or something like that, it's especially in a Magnum cartridge, it's very impressive. It looks cool. But and it was one of those things where I was susceptible to it for a number of reasons. One, because the marketing around Glazer safety slugs at the time was really, 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 really good. Um, Two, because I didn't know any better. And so to me, all of the sort of psychobabble and bullcrap that was put into it, plus it was featured prominently in a couple of books that I read at the time. And it gave me an idea that like this, because one, I'd already bought into the idea that 357 Magnum was better than anything else because it's 350, because it says Magnum right there on it. So clearly
Mhm.
more powerful, thus more death dealing. And then they're like, but if you want the ultimate 357 Magnum cartridge, look no further than the Glazer safety slug. Its polymer tip is designed to fragment, releasing a heavy payload of bleh. I'm like, dude, that
Yeah, yep.
22-year-old gun owning me thought that was the tightest shit ever.
Like, well, I'm sold. I will never look at any information other than this.
Yeah,
Remember the
absolutely
little
sold.
blister packs they came in?
Six in a pack. Oh,
Yep.
I
Especially for semi-automatics. Super annoying.
right. I don't even know. Can you still get Glazers?
I don't.
So Corbon owns Glazer now.
Mhm.
So let's see. We have Glazer products, type of cartridge, safety slug silver. So, and for those who don't know, there are two types of safety slugs. So you had the blue, which like would just blast apart on impact with anything. And then the silver was designed to penetrate a little bit deeper than the blue. And it looks
Uh,
like,
Competing ammunition source that does essentially the same thing as Hornady. Hornady's got the filled tip hollow points, and they've got their conventional line, and then they've got the critical duty line with the stickier. The easiest way to put it is the stickier jacket, because
right.
the bullet stays together much better than the other hollow points. So
Yeah, but I mean, those are actually like even the critical defense is better than a safety slug because the whole
yeah,
idea behind the safety slug is it's packed full of birdshot, and you are
yes,
shooting somebody with a pistol bullet that hits them and then turns into a shit. I guess I should have explained that up front for people who don't know. Okay, so the idea behind the Glazer safety slug was it looks like a regular pistol bullet and it's got a polymer tip in it, and when this polymer tip hits, it blows the jacket apart and releases a payload of little itty bitty birdshot. And I do mean little itty bitty birdshot into the target, which again produces absolutely earth-shatteringly fun to watch terminal effects on things like on things like watermelons and cantaloupes. But as it turned out on people, uh, the best
turns
thing
out that fruit is not an excellent tissue simulant.
it basically, if you looked at historical shootings with the safety slug, it worked really, really well in situations where any conventional jacketed hollow point would have worked. Like, unoccluded frontal upper thoracic shots, it tended to work really well, but anything works really well in an unoccluded upper thoracic shot to
Yeah,
the front of the
there's
body.
no there's nothing challenging that. There's
Right.
nothing challenging that intermediately.
And where you see real serious problems with the Glazers, and it looks like I'm on the website, they don't make them for revolvers anymore, so I've been saved. um, but what you would see with the Glazers is any intermediate barrier, it's going to fail. And it's going to it'll do one of two things when you shoot them through intermediate barriers. The jacket will either fold itself around the payload, and then it will act like an FMJ, which is actually preferable to what the other thing that happens where the jacket blows apart and it dumps its payload prematurely, not into the target. Because the idea was they were supposed to go into the tissue and then dump their payload of birdshot, not casually spray the target with birdshot from 15 feet away.
Mm-hmm. And if you're wondering about the internal construction, if that sounds familiar, yes, it should, because that round is more conventionally called a frangible.
Yep, but worse than a frangible. Oh, look at this! Hang on, because like a frangible only frangibles when it hits a piece of steel. Like
yeah, it must impact something hard to frangible.
If you shoot a person with like a 9mm fringe training round, it's going to act like an FMJ.
Yeah. It might break up at some point inside, but it's going to stay together because it's solid copper jacket on the outside, copper powder on the inside.
This is the hold that this projectile has had over me, though, is that just talking about it, I've been like Googling and trying to find a place that still has some of the old 357 mag safety slug ammo in stock, because I'm like, I just want to see, and like, I want to buy some and I'm going to a revolver event in a couple of weeks, and I kind of wanted to bring some with me and be like, hey, legendary lawman Chuck Haggard, shoot this at a block of ballistic shell and let's see how bad it sucks. But unfortunately, I cannot find any. The only one that I can find is like 44 Magnum, and I'm like, I do not have a 44 Magnum, which is surprising, but oh man, yeah. So I used to buy it. I used to be into it. I believed the hype. I thought that, a 350.
Guys, there's nothing wrong with believing the hype, because that just means marketing works.
Yeah.
When it becomes a problem is when you believe the hype after you've been handed the pile of other evidence that says, but actually.
Yeah, but actually, if you're looking for quality defensive pistol ammunition, your best answer is modern jacketed hollow points. There's a reason why we've been shooting people with, ever since we invented hollow points, we've been trying to make our hollow points better, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, man, that safety slug, it got me, I tell you. And it's crazy how deep that worked its way into my brain, to the point that, like I just said, I'm Googling them right now. I'm like, ooh, maybe I could just I'm like, just one more hit, baby. Into the vein. All right. Peak 80s.
So the thing that I used to believe was, I started getting into firearms tech back age like 15, 16, and the accessible firearms for someone that age are airsoft guns. So I
Yeah.
started playing with the military realistic airsoft guns, and they were starting to get big in the US at the time. We're talking like 2005 up to about 2007.
Right.
Then 2007, I go to the lovely MCRD San Diego and join the United States Marine Corps. And joining joining the Corps and getting handed the M16 and looking inside the handguard and going, ooh, what's that? Oh, that's a gas tube. I thought gas operated actually meant there was a fuel source inside gas operated firearms.
I
Not
actually thought that
necessarily
too at some
gasoline,
point.
but a gas source. Maybe kerosene, maybe. I thought a gas operated firearm had a reservoir of gas separate, like a battery, like an airsoft gun has a battery. I thought gas operated firearms had a reserve of gas somewhere that cycled the action for them. And I'm like, wow, that's strange.
That is
But
not at all how that works.
Also cool. Yep, that's not how that works at all. Turns out it's way easier than that because a round of ammunition makes gas.
Right. It makes its own gas.
It makes gas.
You know, it's
and
funny.
So that was the really dumb thing that I believed until it was like, oh, this makes way more sense.
That's interesting. I don't think I ever had, as I think about it, I can't recall ever having that as a belief, because I was more just like, I don't know how these guns work, and I'm not interested in how they work until the day that I had to learn how they work. I actually didn't like, the only reason I knew that an M4 and an M16 were gas operated is because I read that it said gas operated in the book, and I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
And I knew it didn't have like a physical reservoir of gas in it, but I had no idea how the gas system in an AR-15 worked until I went to Air Force Armorer School.
Yeah.
And because I didn't need to know.
No, it's not a need to know thing. And this was me looking at various literatures about like the XM8, because this was the era where the XM8 was absolutely
XM8 was so fucking cool. It sucked so hard.
Take over and replace the M16. It was just a really space looking cool G36, guys, and I was about it. It was awesome.
It also melted. I should point out that it would also literally melt under rapid fire.
There was that.
The XM8, the problem with the XM8 would have been super cool if they'd actually been able to ship it with the 20 millimeter semi-automatic air bursting grenade launcher.
Yes.
That was the thing. Like the XM8 by itself is just kind of a neat looking 5.56 rifle.
Yeah, it's another 5.56.
20 millimeter air bursting grenades. Excuse me. Hello.
You were like, boop, okay. Whomp.
We kill everybody right over there.
Yep. So yeah, that whole project was like, oh my God, space guns. This is cool.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that era in weapons development. It was a wonderful time, full of crazy ideas.
And the FS 2000.
Yeah, that was a thing too.
That was the thing. That was probably, and I mean, I'm trying to think.
I still want one.
It's that has got to be the ugliest bullpup ever made, right? Like
it really is sinfully bad looking.
Like, hang on.
This is coming. I'll put out that it is the ugliest service grade bullpup.
Okay, so I'm looking now at a list of bullpups.
The AUG is much nicer looking, and I'll say the X95 is much nicer looking and more utilitarian looking than the FS 2000 and the F 2000.
Whatever happened to the Desert Tech MDR?
I think they're still making them.
Are they?
Yep. I have people who yell at me online about it on occasion, who are like, you should have gotten that one. I'm like, that's the one that didn't work when it left the factory, guys.
Yeah, I just saw a picture of the F2000 or the FS 2000, and it is truly hideous to look at.
It's this fat flounder of a rifle, and
especially when you compare it to the FAMAS, which is actually a really Seville, cool looking machine gun or rifle. Like the FAMAS, I think is I'm going to say the FAMAS is the best looking bullpup.
There's an argument to be made for that. I'll go with the AUG, especially the later series AUGs right now. I think those look the coolest and the trimmest. I'll be the first to say that while I like the X95 the most, that's for how it operates, not how it looks.
But the L85 also is hideously ugly.
Yeah. The F2000 is the Bushmaster, what was it, M17 or something like that, was weird.
Mm-hmm.
The Keltecs are Keltecs.
Oh God, the Keltec, the RDB, the one that doesn't have a pistol grip on it,
Yeah, the
is
one that's got a
it's the strangest looking thing I have ever seen.
like, I get where they're going at it, but it do be strange.
I do have sort of a related embarrassing thing, not embarrassing, but maybe controversially. I really used to be on like Team Bullpup Suck, and I have fairly recently, like in the last 4 or 5 months, come around to like team rifles are fine.
Yeah,
It's there are some. I think the problem with the whole Bullpup Suck argument is that there are some really sucky bullpups, and there are some bullpups.
ladies and gentlemen, you are hearing it here on Gunday Brunch. X95.
Right, not all bullpups suck. And that's the thing, is that there have been some really, really bad bullpups, and there have been some that have been really poorly designed that don't have intuitive controls. And I think part of what has driven me down the bullpup suck road is because I don't really give a shit about rifles. An M4 variant does literally everything I can ask a semi-automatic rifle to, and a good bolt gun does everything else I need a rifle to do, right? So if those are sort of my baselines, then unless a rifle offers a significant improvement over that, I have no reason to invest time into it. But I've really recently been working this idea of, a gun for CQB where I don't have to get a tax stamp for. And I'm like, I can get a gun that's like the size of a shorty, I get a gun the size of an 11.4 AR, but with a full 16-inch barrel. And I'm like, maybe bullpups don't suck. And maybe the ones that have good controls, like the X95 and really the X95. Okay, here's what happened.
The X95 has really good controls. If we ever get hands on the modernized AUGs that have the proper magazine controls, those would be pretty cool too. But Australia pulled that out from under us because guns bad. They should
Australians.
The US
I mean, here's what really happened. I was screwing around with an X95, and I'm like, this really doesn't suck. And then I've never thought the FNP90 sucked because it has 50 rounds. So I'm like, I don't care that the ergonomics of reloading this are terrible, because I'm just going to give you the Bs, many, many Bs.
Yep.
I have all the Bs.
I have almost twice the Bs of anybody else who has Bs, and it's this big.
Yeah, and even the dopey ass 16-inch barreled version of that
is still super small. It's fun,
teeny tiny,
and
they're on sale.
It's a blowback operator that's got no recoil on it. It's such a fun little gun.
They are, and they're stupid double. They're extra double fun on full rock and roll. And you're just like,
oh yeah.
And you're like, I have dispensed the bees.
You have mini Bert.
And this is also why I wish HK would just I know they can't, because I understand how laws work, and so I don't get mad at HK for not importing the MP7, because I understand how Germany's gun laws work. But
it
would be cool, guys. It would be cool.
Did you see the I think it was Cry Precision that did the blueprint patent recently on the 300 blackout kind of MP7 looking thing.
Cry Precision MP7 300 blackout. No. An MP7 style PDW in 300 black. A Cry patent suggests so.
Yep.
Well, that's
look at this thing, because it's neat.
Cry
not quite a bullpup, but also kind of a bullpup. It's harkening back to the Uzi Mac 10 era of grip fed magazines, and this thing's kind of cool.
Okay, hang on. I have an objection to this, and here's my objection is because what's the hang on. So obviously, you'd be shooting subsonic out of this, right? Subsonic 300 black ammo. Okay, so what's what are the subsonic rounds, like 230 grains or something like that?
Yeah,
200 grains.
It's usually 220. It's usually 200 to 220.
Okay, so
So
if I
what
want,
you end up having is a 45 ACP with a better ballistic profile,
yeah, it does have a better ballistic coefficient.
with a better ballistic profile and a better sectional density. That's
Yes,
what you end up with.
it does have better sectional density and all of that stuff. But however, if I want Deer Cry Precision, what you just made or made a patent for is a Mac 10.
But
I'm
it's a
not
cool Mac.
saying that that's a bad thing, but like it's a Mac 10. So, speaking of Mac 10s, I didn't know this, but so I've been shopping around for transferable machine guns because I like to light money on fire.
Uh-huh.
And there is a whole ass Mac 10, Mac 11 aftermarket that basically, if you have the serialized upper, you can turn that thing into, I've seen belt fed ones. There's like full on like carbines that, look like a functional carbine. They've got rail
Yeah.
farms and all of that. I'm like, because just so you know, guys, this is a public service announcement from Gunday Brunch. Mac 10s and Mac 11s are currently the cheapest transferable full autos on the market right now. There's a lot of them, and they're like you can get them for like $8,000. You get a
Yep.
you get a whole ass machine gun for $8,000.
Just a low price of $8,000, which at one point in time would have seemed absolutely insane to me until I totaled what I spent on my Scar 16. And I was like, oh, that was more.
If I opened up my gun locker closet thing and I could pull out, I need to pull out 3 revolvers. I could pull out a Manuard MR73. I could pull out a Korth Mongoose, and then I could put like a Taurus on there, and I'd have $8,000.
There it is. There's the value, guys.
I'd be almost there.
So the values are much more achievable than people get it. Funny story. My non-transferable micro Uzi should be in, or mini Uzi, not the micro. Mini Uzi should be in today. So I'm looking forward to that.
Uzis are so much fun. Oh man,
I love
get a
it.
machine gun. All right, guys. Well, let us know in the comments or via hunting our emails down or sending us carrier pigeons. What was
carrier
the dumb?
Pigeons would be awesome.
If I ever got a carrier pigeon, I would be so weirded out because it means somebody knows where I live, and like in like a GPS kind of way, not in a like I have their address. So, but yeah, guys, let us know what was the dumb thing that you used to believe that you don't anymore because you got smarter or you learned or somebody very kindly took you aside and said, oh no, gas operated is expanding gas, not gasoline.
There's not actually a gas reservoir inside.
Right. Or you found out that Glazer safety slugs are good for blowing up watermelons and not much else. All right, guys, that is it for this week. We'll be next week. Frig. I gotta edit this episode anyways because I made a Catholicism joke. So we'll be back next week, guys.
Later.